This video tutorial will discuss how to easily create a load test scenario that will log into the application once and perform a scenario for multiple iterations, and on the last iteration, log off. First, let me clarify that this is not the only way for achieving this, but in my experience, this is the simplest. Also, you need to know that in a performance test scenario, we recommend setting up the number of iteration or the duration of the test from the controller instead of Scenario Builder. We will discuss how to accomplish this later on in this video. Following app loader best practices, we will create 3 scripts. Login and logout scripts, which will both be created as global scenarios. This means that they can be shared throughout the project and will be accessible by other scenario scripts. The third script will search for a patient. This will be the scenario that will run for multiple iterations. To begin, we will create the login script. We will name it Citrix login and set it up as a global scenario, which will make it accessible to other scenarios in this project. Now I'll select Open Web Application, select Firefox, and I will add the URL. And click OK. This will launch a Firefox web browser as well as the scenario recorder, which can be seen on the bottom. This will allow me to record my mouse clicks and capture images from the screen as I interact with the application. I will go ahead and click on this field, and I will add a variable from a previously created CSV file. I will now select the name of the variable, and I will click on Type on Parameter into Field. Next, I will click Tab and do it again for the password. And lastly, I will click on Log On. Now I'll click on Apps and launch the Patient Manager. And then log in. Lastly, I will capture an image of the patient manager to verify that it has launched before ending my recording process. Now that we have created our login scenario, we will move on and create the logout scenario. I will name it Citrix Logout and create it as a global scenario as well. This time, I will select Start Recording, which will launch Scenario Recorder. We'll go ahead and close this window for the patient manager. And next, I'm going to go ahead and log off of the Citrix receiver portal. And lastly, I will go ahead and close the Mozilla Firefox web browser. We'll stop recording, and here's my scenario. Now that I have created the login and logout scenarios, I will create the patient search scenario. I will select Start Recording and begin capturing the process of my scenario. For this scenario, I will search for multiple patients from a CSV file. I will now go ahead and add the variables for the patient names from a previously created CSV file. The last thing I will do is navigate back to home, so that for the next iteration of this scenario, it will be able to start from the same position as the first iteration. Now that I've created the body of my scenario, the next step will be to add two play script actions, one at the beginning. This will play the Citrix login scenario, and to ensure that this scenario plays only on the first iteration, I will edit the skip if parameter. I will select the variable, the execution variable, iteration, the operator not equal, and I will type 1. What this means is that if it's not the first iteration for this whole scenario to be playing in, it will skip this play script action. I will now add a play script action to the end, and this one will play the Citrix logout. For this skip if expression, I will add the variable last iteration. Again, I will add the variable not equal to, and this time I will add success. This expression will check whether or not this truly is the last iteration of the load test for this scenario. If it is, then it will play this script. If not, it will skip it and begin from the beginning. The last thing I will do is add an onFailure action that will close my Firefox application. This will help ensure that if my scenario fails at any step, it'll come and perform the onFailure action. This onFailure action will go ahead and close the Firefox executable, which should leave the window clear for my user for the next test run. Now that we have finished all the scenarios, the last step will be to send them to the controller after verifying that they play successfully, and then creating a load test in which I will determine how many iterations I want this scenario to play for. We will now play the scenario through Scenario Builder for 3 iterations to verify that the scenario will run as expected. We will select Play Multiple Iterations, set the number to 3, and click OK. Now that we have verified that the scenario will play as expected, it is ready to be sent to the app loader controller to set up the load test. After verifying that my scenario runs correctly, and after sending it to the controller, I will now navigate to the controller and finish setting up my load test. I'll log into the controller. Navigate to manage tests and create a new test plan. I will give the test a name. Set up a steady state time. This is how long I want the test to run for, and this is in minutes. Next, I will select an injector from the list and select the scenario which I just sent. I will leave it at 5 users, default delay of 1 user starting every 10 seconds. So here, in this section, I will be able to set up how many iterations I want this scenario to run for. Based on this steady state time of 5 minutes and the reference time of 2 minutes for my scenario, it has calculated about 3 iterations for this load test. I can change this and override it to 5. So that means that this patient scenario will run for 5 iterations, and on the first iteration it will perform the Citrix login, and on the 5th iteration it will perform the Citrix logout. Next, I will verify that my CSV files are set up correctly. And at this point, I will save the test. At this point, I am ready to run this load test. Now that we have created the load test, we can start the R users and begin running the load test. I will navigate to the injector section, select the injector that I want to use for the test, and click Start Users. For this test, I will start 3 users. If I look here at my injector machine, I can see that the users are beginning to start under the R user manager. Once all 3 of the users have started, I can navigate back to the app loader controller, select the test that I've created, and start running it. In the injector, I should be able to see the test running under the 3 users. I can also monitor my test run from the real-time section of App Loader. And once the test is completed, I can review my results here in the test analysis section.